Business Development at Human Design, based in Boulder, also in LA. Tina, good morning.
Good morning, Jensen. How are you?
I'm doing well. Your background game is strong. I'm a fan,
As
very much
colorful as
so.
I am.
So, Tina, for background for everybody, she's been a great force in my life, personally and professionally. I love the way that she thinks. Working with human design, she has a really macro perspective, and having had a lot of experience working in the restaurant field and being super passionate about hospitality, she also has a very in the feet on the streets, in the grind type mentality as well within the industry. So we're going to talk a little bit about what she's thinking about the industry, what human design is doing from just a brand perspective as well. So Tina, first, just kind of how are you doing right now? Because you are feet on the streets. You like to be out there meeting and greeting and building relationships, and now you're stuck at home.
I am stuck at home. It's a little bit of a challenge for me. I am very much so an extrovert. So living at home with my dog and boyfriend and that being the only interaction I have is a little bit challenging. So the video game is definitely helping to talk to prospects. And then we also have a lot of work going on in our house right now. So I've got contractors working in the backyard and the front yard. So I'm still surrounding myself with people somehow.
Yes, this is face to face now. It's like a new
Yes.
reality where I'm like, oh, it's really good to talk to you face to face, kind of, but still
Yeah.
not quite. So I appreciate that. And then also human design. I'm gonna have you tell us just a little bit about human design, kind of the big picture. But human design, also you were in a brand new facility that now you're
Yeah.
going to be in as well. So let's talk about human design a little bit.
Yeah, so we're a full service agency created or located in Boulder, Colorado. And to your point, on April 1st, we got the keys to our wonderful new building, and none of us are there. So it's a little bit of a morale game for the human design team. We're really lucky because we're used to working remotely. And so our kind of the way that we work with our clients and the work we can do for our clients hasn't changed much, minus the fact that the new face to face is what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge, but for us, specifically for our clients with their projects who haven't paused anything, we're still able to continue to do the work that we have been because we were set up to be digital before. So we are a few of the lucky ones in that respect because we were set up to be remote workers prior to this. And we do a lot of work nationwide and internationally. And so for us to communicate with clients over video chat is kind of normal, but it's definitely the new normal today.
For sure. Let's talk about brand and storytelling. One of the things that human design does as good, if not better, than almost anybody in the game, for sure. So I'm very interested in that because I think there's a lot of thinking that the hospitality industry can take on and then be able to apply it within kind of what we do. So brand, storytelling, brand equity, these are some terms that I want to touch on. So just from a brand perspective, when you think about how human design is laying that out there in a really compelling way, and then thinking about your understanding, your passion within the hospitality industry, kind of try and connect those dots for us a little bit.
Yeah, so brand is something that human design was really built on originally. We are our creative discipline and then how we use those creative extensions to tell the story for a brand are really important for us. And I think one of the things specifically in the restaurant industry today, specifically among the COVID crisis, that the restaurant industry is going to have to start to think about is the brand equities that they own today versus the ones that they had before. And so you and I have had many conversations around restaurants and really clinging on to the loyalty piece. And that's been a trending term in the industry since I've known it. And you and I both talked about loyalty in a very, very granular way to where loyalty and rewards from a restaurant perspective right now are very, very transactional.
Yes.
Where the way that we position brand at Human Design, and there's a couple different ways that we look at a brand. It's, your voice definition and the story that you're telling, and then it's your visual identity. But more important to that, it's what are your brand equities? What is it that keeps people coming back to your restaurant? What is it that keeps people coming back to interact with you on social media and really grow that community? And from an equity standpoint, we always talk about, and specifically for restaurants, equities versus loyalty. And in our opinion, if you have brand loyalty, we talked about the punch card, and the punch card is only as good as it is until something more valuable comes along. And so, specifically for the restaurant industry right now, I think we need to shift the focus around loyalty and kind of move it over to what are your brand equities and what's your point of view? What is going to keep somebody coming back to your restaurant when COVID is over? And how are you thinking about that today? Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges restaurants have is that they've been so transactional in the past that now they're doing everything that they possibly can to get any type of order. But the one thing they need to be really cautious of is that on the other side of brand equity is brand debt. And so you need to be very careful about selling your brand, if you will, to companies like Grubhub or DoorDash that all of a sudden are responsible for how your brand is represented when it gets to somebody's house right now. And so those are the few topics that we're really talking to in the hospitality industry specifically is what are your brand equities and how are you tracking them or protecting them?
Yeah, and I think the challenge becomes brand is such almost a dirty word in the hospitality industry because we're so focused on creating a tangible product that
Mm-hmm.
brand and sometimes advertising, marketing, they seem like witchcraft. It's
Yep.
not tactile. We can't touch it. Yet we're seeing it play out right now in a massive way where so many restaurants are in debt
Mm-hmm.
to third-party delivery apps, to your point, and they don't own the resource of their guests the way that they do in their restaurants. And it's a
Yep.
challenge because they're trying to manage an expectation of being available out there, and that's the way
Mm-hmm.
that people are consuming that right now. Yet, taking a step back, it is the brand equity that you have, your brand and ability to tell those stories that will
Yep.
compel people to interact with you. We are just
Mm-hmm.
conveniencing. So the path of least resistance right now to get those food products and that feeling in their home is these third-party deliver apps. But the brand equity and the storytelling is what's going to compel people moving forward. Yes, we have talked about this so much and so agree. So when we talk about somebody who's got 2, 3, small little restaurants, they have,
Mm-hmm.
61 employees, something like that. These all seem like things that big companies with big money can do to tell these stories where they're like, I just make pizza. How then can they be thinking about this as now they have to be thinking about this because there's no other option right now?
Yeah. So I was talking to somebody yesterday around if you almost imagine this COVID crisis as a shockwave, the companies that are going to come out of this in the best way possible are the ones that are watching the wave on the horizon and are planning for when that wave kind of hits and surpasses. And I think specifically for the smaller restaurants, they've always kind of had the opinion that like we can't really afford marketing. That's not the most important thing to us. We're going to focus on these other things. But in reality, and it's unfortunate that a situation like COVID forced them to do this, what's really going to happen with this crisis is restaurants from 1 to 2 locations up to 150 locations are going to really start to think about their customer experience and what the new customer expectation is going to be. And customers now expect things online and they expect a darn good user experience. And if your user experience from your website on mobile to the accessibility to find you for delivery and things like that aren't up to par, then consumers today and even after COVID are going to resonate more towards the brand who make their products and their services accessible to them in a very, very easy way. And so I think one of the things that restaurants are going to have to start to do is shift their priority all the way from how they're spending money, how they're hiring employees, where they're choosing to allocate their time, and really focus on making what we talk about all the time, Jensen, a digital transformation. You have to make online accessibility to your restaurant. And if you don't, then others will go to a different brand. And that doesn't mean, throwing your menu up on a single platform or just getting on Uber Eats or DoorDash. It means building a brand that people will come to through your own properties, your own website, and building that reputation to where I know if I call Michi down the street from me up. I'm going to get fast delivery and it's going to be packaged well and it's going to be just as good as if I was eating it in store. And that's the difference that brands need to take today is it was not a priority before. It has to be now. And I think the new normal for this industry is, at least with the clients I've worked with in this space, about 20 to 30% of their revenue on average, sometimes a lot lower than that, where it was coming from delivery. Today, obviously, 100% of that revenue is coming from delivery and takeout. And post COVID, I think that's going to transform to more than 50% being delivery or takeout. And that's going to shift the way that restaurants, think about building their spaces, the capacity for a takeout kitchen versus the eat-in kitchens, whether or not they're going to sell their brands, to our point earlier, to the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes of the world, or are they going to start to equip themselves to have a user experience to where they're actually the delivery drivers and protecting the experience of my meal from the kitchen all the way to my door. And that's a big pivot for restaurateurs, at least the ones that I've worked with. And it's unfortunately something they need to be facing right now, because if they wait until after COVID, they're going to be behind the game and it's going to be harder and harder to build up momentum.
Yeah, so I'm the old guard of restaurant where it was all about high touch hospitality, where I want them in my space so that I can manage that expectation and deliver upon a certain promise, a brand promise.
Yep.
We call it, service or whatever, but it's a brand promise. And so I don't want delivery. I fucking hate delivery. Everything about it. I want them in my space. So how then do we reconcile the fact that it's going in that direction? Does that just mean that I don't want to be a part of that? Like, how are we having that conversation? Because there's a lot of people that are fighting against that. And I'm very concerned that we're fighting the inevitability and then going to put so much effort and resource into fighting it that then we have nothing left to actually deliver on hospitality, which is shifting. But when I get food from a certain place and I still feel that emotion, that connection to them, it's still high touch hospitality. We just had to deliver it in a different way. So I don't want delivery. Talk to me now about the way that I need to be thinking and reconciling the fact that I want people in my space.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. When you think about it, even internally from like an employee perspective, you want butts and seats. You want people there because you want to be able to control the experience. And to your point, it's inevitable. You're going to have to. And so I think it's going to be a little bit of shaking those restaurateurs into realizing that if you don't do this, it's a make or break move. And there's a chance that you're going to close restaurants because you're not transforming to meet the customer where they're at from a new expectation standpoint. And I think restaurateurs have the ability right now and the opportunity right now to become very innovative and really understanding and leaning into how they can create that experience and control that experience, even if that means bringing it to somebody's home. Like, so get creative with how you do it. Restaurateurs, we talk about this all the time. You get a lot of delivery in just styrofoam takeout containers, which is great, but specifically in a state like Colorado, sustainability is not that great. Like we've talked about this. Like I hate when I get takeout and I have 45 containers that are non-recyclable. I have to throw away. And so restaurants right now, it is make or break. Delivery and takeout will be a thing of the future. It will be a large percentage of the future for restaurants. And they need to get innovative on their packaging, their presentation, and then starting to get the ownership back of those deliveries outside of those apps like Uber Eats and into their own space. And get creative. Maybe you send a QR code with your takeout meals that when somebody scans it, it's the chef popping up and saying, hey, I hope you enjoy this meal. And by the way, if you don't, here's my cell phone number, obviously marketing version of it. So it's not direct contact, but like, tell us about this experience. But it's something where restaurants now, they have to level up or they're going to lose the game. And there's plenty of restaurants out there that are doing it. And so if you want to fall behind, you can sit there and resist it, or you can join the crew and really become innovative in the space and take advantage of an opportunity where, quite honestly, your overhead is a lot lower if you do takeout and delivery, and you have less people to worry about in the store. And so really right now is the time to capitalize on it. And I think the restaurateurs who do it will be better off, 6 to 8 months from now.
And so what about, I'm a server, bartender. Are you trying to make my job obsolete and I no longer have a job is a big question as well. So those type of conversations, we're trying to innovate and use technology as a bridge for people versus a
Hmm.
barrier. Talk about that a
Yeah.
lot. And I wonder how we can reassure and support the people that are actually working in those businesses if those businesses are going to shift. Or are we
Yeah.
creating an opportunity for less capital needed to create some of these entities where all of a sudden a small group of servers and bartenders can actually be creating the brand and the products themselves? How are you thinking about that? What are those conversations like?
Yeah, so that's actually near and dear to me because my kind of career started in the restaurant industry and I was, a bartender, a server, a host, a manager. And I think for me, in retrospect, and almost a silver lining to restaurants potentially operating at closer to, 70 to 80% of capacity that they were prior to COVID, it really gives them the opportunity to connect with their guest and create the experience that you want. And I think back to some of the busy Friday nights and dropping tickets off at wrong tables, wrong food orders, just the chaos that exists in restaurants. And although that it was exhilarating kind of in the moment, I think if you shift and kind of really look at the silver lining that's there, having less people in your restaurant and having different ways to provide people an experience really gives you as a server or a bartender or a manager the opportunity to make personal connections to your customers and start to build that brand versus doing the reactive, oh crap, I have to go talk to table 34 because they didn't get their food for an hour and a half and now I look like an a-hole. What
Mhm.
do I do? And so I think it's going to be a little bit of a mindset shift for the industry. And I think speaking of employees in this industry, that's another area that restaurateurs today are going to have to get very creative because we've talked about this. Half of their employees have been let go, furloughed, and are now seeking jobs in other industries. And so the brands or the restaurant's brand and the culture that they build is not only important for their customers, but also to gain those employees back. And that's something that you're going to have to become kind of take your mindset out of those blinders and really start to think holistically on how you can build a culture that's good for your customers and your employees. And, delivery and takeout doesn't mean you don't have a job. It just means you do it a little bit differently.
Yeah, so a couple things to unpack from what you just said is the opportunity for us to invest in why and who. It's always
Mm-hmm.
want over
Why and
what and
who?
how is always the thing. And this gives us a different opportunity because right now we're so much more beholden. We see it playing out right now to rent,
Yes.
to real estate, right? To the price of a $3,500 business in the downtown corridor with, $45 a square foot triple net. Like these are big numbers. You are
Yeah.
so pushed to put as many butts in seats that you lose out on the internal and external guest experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then all of a sudden, if you can have a smaller footprint, shift the way that the business model is, you can start to invest in things that actually matter. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, your service staff or your restaurant staff is not clamoring for one more table, one more like hour of work to be able to get the small amount of money that they're getting because it's transactional. We can invest more money into those people because then we're also creating those better potential margins if we control the resources of
Mm-hmm.
not being feed to death when it comes to some of those third parties, knowing that the inevitability of in-home consumption
Mm-hmm.
of your brand is going to become more and more important. So that's number one. Just want people thinking about that because that
Totally.
is going to become a major conversation. The next thing you talked about, furloughed people. The biggest concern that I have right now is the thinking that, oh, so many restaurants are going to close and it's just going to be so many people looking for jobs. I'm not going to have an issue with these labor shortages. A couple things. One, that is not an abundance thinking. That is actually a scarcity thinking. I'm concerned
Mm-hmm.
about the mindset. Two, we're losing a lot of the most talented people right now. That's what I'm concerned about. So many of them have been in the industry and have been
Mm-hmm.
so connected to it. Right now, they're doing something else. And
Yep.
they are going to say, you know what? Why should I come back to the hospitality industry? Because this industry over here took care of me during COVID. The restaurants
Yeah.
disappeared, not the restaurateur's fault by any means or the restaurant's fault. It's just the state of things. And so then I'm concerned that those talented people won't come back. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, when you look at the talent pool when you come back, there may be more bodies, but what is the level of those bodies? And then you're trying to put them back into the system that you had. I'm concerned about that. So touch on that a little bit, because I know that's something you're very passionate about, is the talent. And like, I want restaurants to be the Google of that industry and people wanting to go and work there because of innovation and culture versus I just never have done anything else, because that's an easy gateway to, well, now finally I was forced to do something else. So now I'm going to continue to do something else.
Yeah. And I think for me, like you said, it's very near and dear. And my biggest concern of it is, and one of the favorite things I ever had about working when I was actually feet on the street in the restaurant industry, and then today just on the outside looking in, is the passion of the people. Like there is no better group of people, just from like a humility, a passion, just every possible thing that you would want in a human being. I feel like it exists in the restaurant industry. And I'm so afraid that this was such a negative experience that people are going to lose that passion and lose that fire that really allows them to get excited and stay excited about the industry. And to your point, I know we talked about this, but Jeff Bezos posted on Instagram like a public letter to the hospitality industry, almost directly being like, I know you lost your job, come work for us. You know, you can go back to the service industry after, but we'll take care of you. And to your point, how many people are going to want to go back? Because I can, you know, make my own hours when I work for Amazon. I'm probably getting tipped better. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to focus on as we start to, you know, transition back into eating into restaurants, and specifically from a serving perspective, is that it's the age-old rule of quality over quantity. If you have 100 tables in a night, you might get a bunch of $5 tips. But imagine if you had 40 tables in a night and you were able to give them the best experience of their life, you're likely to get better and more tips from less people because of the service that you provide them. And so I almost see this as an opportunity for the restaurateurs and the management leadership within those industries to really empower their server staff, their bar staff, their front of stand, like host stand staff, to work harder and smarter and just, you know, give that quality experience that they want to, and they're generally too busy to. So don't focus in on the negative of it being slower or a lower capacity, but really focus on the ability to give who's there the experience that they need to, going back to brand equities, elevate your brand story and your brand equities and give them a reason to come back, because you didn't forget their drink and you didn't mess up their order because you were going too fast. And I think for all of us in every single industry, that's true. It's your mindset's going to have to shift after this. And it's about giving a better experience and not worrying about the quality and the load of everything that you're doing, but just focus on being a good person and giving a good experience, because that at the end of the day is how you build a community and what keeps people coming back to those butts and seats. And you might not have as many butts and seats, but you're going to have better butts and seats because they're going to be there for the experience.
Yeah. And I think also right now when somebody who owns a restaurant is listening, they're going, the fuck are you talking about? Like, I can't afford to pay people more, because they're thinking about their P&L right now. They're thinking about their books right now. They're thinking about their prime costs as they are today. Yet again, shifting towards what happens in real estate and the expectations of how your books are balanced out. I think all of a sudden, if we're spending less on being in a 3,500 square foot space that has all these bells and whistles from a design perspective and all these different things, and we're focusing and simplifying them, which we already see. This is not like a new idea. It happened in 2008. White tablecloths and crystal went away. It's going to happen again, simplification. But for me, that doesn't mean dumbing down, and it doesn't mean stripping it all away. It means really focusing your brand, your story, your why and who, so that your brand equity is so high that you then are now investing in those things and finding yourself in a location that may not be the downtown location, yet you have such strong brand equity and invest in your people that every restaurant has the opportunity to be its own destination. And if you build that up and then people are bringing you into their homes, the connection that they have to you is immense. So that's what I want people really thinking about. Not out here saying you need to start doing this, that, and the other. It's like, here's the opportunities in the thinking, and here's the white space right now, because everyone's going to have to make their own personal decision 100% for this. Yet if we're investing, and the thinking
Mm-hmm.
is pushing towards the things that actually matter, and that's connecting directly to guests in a meaningful way, internally and externally. That's the hope that I have for the industry. All right, that was good. Any
Yeah.
last thoughts? Any more rah rah rah? I love always the energy. You're always challenging me, my preconceived notions as well. So any last thinking, and then I want to get some playlist items from you.
Totally. The last thing I think I would say, and it's something that at Human Design we really lean into from a brand standpoint, is a lot of companies focus on what their point of differentiation is, right? Like what makes me different? I have organic, natural, whatever it is. And all of those things are important, but what we say at Human Design is that your point of view is much more valuable than your point of differentiation. And so what I would challenge restaurateurs to do in this time right now is focus both internally and externally. And to my point earlier of watching that wave on the horizon, is you should be planning right now for your future, and you should be really determining how you're going to shift your brand to match the new customer expectation. And follow the lead of a company like Chipotle, who provides free mental health care for all of their employees, even if they're hourly, at less than 20 hours per week. Or the Starbucks, who their point of view is like, we're going to support every employee by giving them tuition reimbursement. And those points of views that those companies stand for and how they represent their employees are going to go a lot further than thinking and crunching about your margins and making sure that you don't pay your host too many dollars per hour, because you gotta watch those really thin margins. Really reaches out to both your customers and your employees. And that's really going to be what the difference is of the restaurants that come on the other side of COVID in a positive way versus the ones who may not make it.
Yeah. So to your point, and then to the point I've been trying to play counter and devil's advocate throughout this, of saying, well, I'm the small restaurateur. Well, yeah, Starbucks and Chipotle, they can afford to do all that stuff because they have all the money in the world. You feel, and I feel as well, they've been investing in that throughout, which is why they've been able to get to that point. They've invested in those things and made those decisions at every point of their process of growth, so that now when you look at it, you're like, well, yeah, they have all this money so they can invest in people. They may have a new program, but the investment and the commitment has always been there. Is that kind of you're in agreement there?
The way I would frame it is, if you look at Human Design and you look at our website, we work with Fortune 500 companies. We work with Google, Twitter, Nikes of the world, but we also work with, 1 to 2 person startups. And our intentionality and the type of work that we do for those 2 different types of companies, a Fortune 500 compared to a small startup, our intentionality does not change with those projects. What changes is the breadth and the depth in which we do things. And if you, as a 1 to 2 restaurateur owner, look at it and say, well, I can't be Starbucks, I can't give tuition, you're looking at it the wrong way. You can't do something that big, but do something that's at scale for who you are and what you do. And if that means that, you give 100 meals a week to homeless, that's your point of view. And that's your, that's what makes you different. You don't have to give away tuition like Starbucks, but you have to do something that sets yourself out to the breadth and depth that you can, to the scale of the business that you are. And comparing yourself to those larger companies and what they're doing will never get you anywhere. So just, focus on your world and what you're able to do to make a difference, and don't compare yourself to the big guys.
It's awesome. I love it. Just take the thinking, reverse engineering into what's actually practical for you with the investment. The thinking is what I'm very passionate about. I'm really, really hoping we find a way to invest in the very best talent. And like, again, I want the restaurant industry, the industry, like, you are the Chipotle of tech. You are the Chipotle of construction, because I want to take that thinking and people's ability to frame the conversation around who is at the forefront of whatever the innovation and the culture is. Because I think restaurants absolutely have an opportunity, especially when it comes to culture, to be at the very forefront, the most dynamic, inviting, inclusive, exciting culture. Yes, I'm always fired up when I talk to Tina. If you guys can't notice, my hands flail more and more the more I talk to Tina, which is amazing. All right, Tina, a couple playlist items. I know your playlist is getting on the phone and talking to people, which I know is what you do most of the day to both flourish professionally, but I feel like it's also therapy for you
Oh, yeah.
being so extroverted. But give us a couple things maybe that when you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes for yourself to do, to listen to watch, to read, to play, that gives you those moments of levity.
Yeah. So I would say one thing that I definitely go to if I've had a stressful day or just need to unwind is I've been building for about 5 years a playlist I call the Island playlist. And it's just like a combination of like island music that we've kind of built over the years sitting on beaches. And so every time I play that playlist, it's like I'm sitting on a hammock in the beach, you know, a little bit of reggae, a little bit of Beach Boys in there, but that really brings me to like my center. I'm also notorious for listening way too frequently to the Harry Potter books on Audible. Like, I think I've listened to all of them probably 3 to 4 to 5 times a piece.
Wow.
I can literally, if I'm
books.
like, they are, yeah, for many years. But yeah, if I'm like grinding through like a scope of work or a contract for a client, I can put my headphones in and like jam out to like Harry Potter. And it's just background noise and very therapeutic for me, but it allows me to get in my zone. And then the final
Audible has
one,
been a huge unlock for me too,
dude,
because
have you?
I love consuming information and I like reading in small excerpts where like my energy's in it, but reading to relax is like the opposite of what I do. I'm just too go, go, go. But now listening to like Anthony Bourdain or Danny
Dude, yes.
Meyer while I'm doing
Danny Meyer's
anything else.
so good.
Oh yeah, has been really, really good. So Audible, I highly recommend people get on Audible
So
because I'm definitely learning a lot. And I'm listening to like Purple Cow, which I had read,
yes.
things like that, all kinds of marketing. I'm trying to catch up to you, Tina, when it comes to the marketing game for sure.
I'll give you my book and podcast list. The other one, have you heard of Blinkist, the app?
No.
So Blinkist is awesome. I recommend that everyone gets it. I think you like an annual subscription is like $20 or something like that. But basically what they take is, you know, a standard long format book and they break it down into the cliff notes for you and you can read them or you can listen to them in less than 20 minutes. And so like a book like The Lean Startup, which is my jam, and it, you know, it's like 300 to 400 pages. It's really really deep to get into, but you can listen to it or read it on Blinkist and get all the top pointers of it and just it's fresh in your memory again. So Blinkist is definitely on my list for anybody who has like attention span issues like I do, where it's just like quick 15 minutes of information. Another good one.
Yes, I like that a lot. Even if I've read the whole, like a Purple Cow, I definitely find myself getting the punchline of a chapter and be like, cool, I remember, I got it, next chapter, to kind of like refresh and reset yourself. Oh, I really like
this gives you like cliff notes. It's awesome.
It's the 4 dummies of the future, huh?
Yes. Well, it's hey, 4 dummies are like the 4 I'm way too busy to do this, but I want to read this book or remember, and it only takes you 15 minutes to do it, which is right up my alley because the more I can pack into my day, the better.
I love that a lot. It used to be the kind of thing you would like listen to or consume while you're driving. Now we're not driving really anywhere, so got to find those moments.
I commute every morning I take my dog on a walk and just like listen to a podcast or something to be like, okay, I'm getting out of the house and coming to the office.
I like that it's still your commute. That's perfect.
It's my commute.
Yeah. Thank you as always for the thinking, the inspiration, for challenging preconceived notions. I always love it. I always love when I hear something new or something that I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. And it's like, wait, is that the way it hasn't worked in the past, or is it actually something that cannot be done and accomplished? And so I really, really appreciate that always. Tina, have a great day. Take that dog for a walk.
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Jensen.
All right, take care. Yep, Tina. I like talking to Tina a lot. We'll get on Zoom calls every once in a while and record them to be able to like then look back and be like, oh, were there a couple of nuggets of things that we talked about? Been really great working with her a little bit and just getting the understanding of a company like Human Design, what they're doing at scale for pretty impressive, massive companies. And are there ways to reverse engineer the thinking, the investment, the approach, and bring that to smaller markets and to the future of the hospitality industry, especially so much of the independently owned that I've been a part of throughout my entire career, those unsung hospitality heroes, and trying to find value for them so that we can invest in them even more into the future is all the things that Tina has really pushed me, challenged me, gotten to reframe my thinking. So I'm grateful for that. And I think we need more of it, even though at times it sounds like we're going counter to the things that got us into this industry. And I completely understand that. We also need to be aware of the inevitability of certain things and how we can actually drive what happens next versus being a victim of that circumstance and just laying down and fucking dying. Like, it's not going to happen. The industry is so built around humans that like never quit. We'll run through wall after wall after wall. And I'm just hoping we can start to build the walls ourselves and then run through them, because it is so in our DNA. But we're going to have to try and think about the way that we control those resources and really own our story, our brand, our relationships with our guests at whatever level, if they are butts and seats, or if they are looking for us to deliver into the home, or whatever that third place becomes of the future for our industry as well. There's a lot of opportunity for us to continue to evolve, and we've seen it play out. Now we're just being forced to really have to do that in a scary way, as people are, hurting right now for sure. So appreciate Tina and the thinking. Tune back in about 25 minutes, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Going to have on AJ Sheikh, who is with Community Banks of Colorado. He's kind of one of their SBA specialists. We're going to try to dig into this CARES Act, PPP, SBA, EIDL, all these acronyms that have become entirely too normal rolling off my tongue. Still have no idea exactly what they are. And that's part of the challenge. But having somebody on who can just give us the next layer of thinking, as there's still not 100% transparency and clarity around it. However, closer and closer, and just knowing where to look and what the types of questions that you need to be asking are going to be really important, because this is going to be really personal and unique to each operation. My goal, as always, is supporting those unsung hospitality heroes. So if I can get a little bit of information out there, or some connections, or anything to be able to get more people back to work, I'm going to try and do that as much as I can. So, and then tomorrow's episode, love this guy, Jose Salazar from Salazar and Mitas and Goose and Elder in Cincinnati, Ohio. Unbelievable chef, leader in the industry, and he's got some great things going, and the things he's doing to support his team as well as his community. Fired up. I'm not even talking to him until tomorrow, but I'm fired up, and that'll be on at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. All right, I'll see you guys back in a little bit. Thanks as always for the opportunity to speak with you. I appreciate it.